constituency. We welcome her to this morning's press conference. The Minister for Housing and Urban Development, Honorable Melissa Skerrit. Welcome. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and Mrs. Skerrit, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, and other members of Cabinet, the Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Corinne Prevost, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Missy Henderson, other permanent secretaries and government officials who have joined us this morning, our distinguished guests this morning, the members of the media, listeners and viewers tuned in to this press conference, good morning and welcome. On behalf of the Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit and the government of Dominica, I officially welcome you to today's press conference. The Prime Minister will address a number of issues of national interest. Following his remarks, as usual, there will be an opportunity for questions from members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit.
Thank you, Madam Press Secretary, and let me first of all recognize the members of the media fraternity. We thank you very much for your presence. Without you there will be no press conference, and so we appreciate your presence. I want to recognize all of my colleagues who are here this morning, and of course, any questions relating to the ministries, they'll be directed to answer today. So they're all here. And they'll answer to you. And of course, to those listening via the live coverage of this press conference, I wish you a good morning. And I do hope that we have started to have a very good Christmas. Christmas really is a time of giving, not receiving. So we should look to giving, especially to those who we need, and share the good tidings with our fellow men and fellow women. As we come to the close of another year, I welcome the opportunity to report on the work of the government, to reflect on the values which have guided our decisions and shape our actions, and to look ahead to the new year 2026. This government has always been anchored in a simple but powerful principle: people first. It is the foundation of our policies, the compass for our decisions, and the answer to the question, why do we do what we do? We act because we believe that development is really about upliftment, dignity, and the well-being of our people. This year's achievements reflect the philosophy in action. This morning, I will briefly highlight some of our key accomplishments over the past year, but my primary objective is to give you, the members of the media, the opportunity to raise issues from your perspective. First, I would like to speak about the minimum wage, which is a minimum wage implementation lifting people up. First, let me express the government's appreciation for the significant role the private sector continues to play as an important pillar of Dominica's economy, especially in the employment of thousands of Dominicans and making key investments in the development of our national product. Since the implementation of the minimum wage increase on December 1st, 2025, private sector leaders have raised a number of issues, all of which have been carefully noted. On the issue of the consultation and the work of the Minimum Wage Advisory Board, the government established the Minimum Wage Advisory Board precisely to ensure that all sectors had an opportunity to contribute to the process. The board conducted its review over several months, and considered submissions from the representative organizations of the private sector and also individual employers. We recognize that some recommendations were not fully reflected in the final schedule of rates. However, it is important to clarify that the board's mandate required it to balance private sector concerns with the overriding objective of ensuring a fair and livable wage for workers, particularly those at the lowest end of the income scale in our country. While the implementation date has necessitated adjustments for some employers, the government had to weigh this against the urgent need to address wage stagnation and the rising cost of living affecting thousands of workers across multiple sectors. It is also worth noting that many private sector employees have not seen real wage growth in over a decade, even as the economy has recovered and as certain sectors have posted strong performance. Nonetheless, the Ministry of Labor will review the transition challenges raised by employers and assess whether practical administrative support or reasonable phased arrangements may be appropriate in specific areas. Government's objective is not merely to raise wages, but to raise standards, to encourage decent work, and to support a sustainable, competitive, and vibrant private sector. Government wishes to assure the public that the adjustment to the minimum wage is being facilitated in a responsible, measured, and economically sound manner designed to protect workers' incomes without triggering an unnecessary rise in prices. Contrary to common misconception, an increase in the minimum wage does not automatically lead to higher inflation. What matters is how the adjustment is managed. Government has therefore adopted a strategy that cushions the economy, supports businesses during the transition, and safeguards the purchasing power of all our citizens. There has been talk about the minimum wage will cause significant retail inflation, and I want to share with you some perspectives on this. In retail stores across the Caribbean economies, supermarkets, clothing shops, hardware outlets, wages typically account for only 10 to 15% of the final price of goods. Let's take a look at a practical example of a grocery bill of $200 EC. The landed cost of the items, duties, taxes, overheads, that is rent and utilities, and profit make up 85%, or $170. Labor makes up 15%, or $30 of the $200 grocery bill. A 30% increase in the minimum wage means that the $30 labor share will increase by $9, or to $39. Accordingly, contrary to alarms raised that the 30% increase in the minimum wage will trigger a 30% or a $60 increase on a $200 grocery bill, the actual increase will be $9 or 4.5%. Clearly, because labor is a small component of retail prices, there is really no basis for any significant rise in the price of goods, or indeed any increase at all. Retail prices move mainly because of international freight costs, global commodity prices, exchange rates shifts, and import duties. A higher minimum wage does not affect these cost drivers. Retailers can cushion wage increases through progressive improvements in the efficiency and profitability of supply chain considerations or operations, increased productivity, better inventory management, and waste reduction. Caribbean countries that increased minimum wages in the past decade, for example in Barbados, Jamaica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia, saw no significant retail inflation linked to wage hikes. The price movements remained tied to global factors, not local labor costs. To ensure a smooth and stable implementation, government is pursuing the following measures. 1, productivity support for employers and workers. Investment in skills training, digitization, and process improvements to help businesses generate higher output per employee. Higher productivity offsets wage costs and keeps prices stable. 2, reducing operating costs. Temporary relief measures such as reduced duties on essential inputs, faster customs processing, streamlined government services, reduced administrative burdens, and support for energy efficiency will help small and medium enterprises absorb the adjustment without increasing prices to consumers. 3, targeted support for vulnerable sectors. Labor-intensive and small enterprises will receive targeted assistance to ensure the wage increase does not place them at risk or lead to unintended inflationary pressures. 4, strengthening competition and preventing price gouging. Government is closely monitoring the market to prevent unfair price increases. Strong competition and regulatory oversight ensure that any cost adjustments remain fair, transparent, and justified. A fair minimum wage, my dear brothers and sisters, lifts vulnerable workers without burdening consumers. The economy becomes more stable, not more expensive. Government remains confident that these policies will enhance the livelihoods of low-income workers, support sustainable growth, and prevent inflation. And we all will agree that after some time, that the wages that are controlled by an act of parliament, that those persons are allowed to be given an increase, like everyone else, both in the private and public sector, who are governed or who are represented by unions, have received increases over the years to assist in dealing with inflation in the country. And I'm happy that, from all accounts, that the increase in the minimum wage was well received, even if some in the private sector are of the opinion and the view that the timing may not be a good one, and that we're looking at to see how we can work with them on addressing the transition from the old rates to the new rates. But also interesting to note that based on the report we received, it was noted that many of the employers said that they were already paying people above the minimum wage. And so many of them were already factored that into their wage bill. But it's just that the law now had to be changed in order to make it mandatory that people receive a fair wage for a fair day's work. And I'm happy that we're able to do so, and in time for Christmas, as they say. Removal of custom duties, VAT, on food items, which is a major decision of the government this year. At a time when global inflation continues to place pressure on families, we took decisive action to remove custom duties and VAT on a wide range of essential food items. This was a practical intervention announced in the 2025-2026 national budget aimed at easing the burden on households, especially those with limited income. We did this because a responsible government must stand with its people in the face of any hardship which threatens their well-being. We did this because no one should ever be forced to choose between putting food on the table and meeting other basic needs. I am pleased to report that these reductions have, across the board, had a positive impact on the purchasing power of families and their overall ability to meet daily expenses. To assess the impact of the removal of VAT and import duties on selected list of consumer goods, the Division of Trade conducted a market surveillance exercise, both before and after the policy took effect. The first exercise was carried out prior to October 1, 2025, to establish baseline prices. A second exercise was concluded on December 12, 2025, with the objective of measuring changes in retail prices following the implementation of the VAT and import duty exemptions. The division focused its assessment on the Big Six. These are the largest importers and distributors of these goods in Dominica, whose pricing practices significantly influence retail prices island-wide. These are J. Astafans and Company Limited, HHV Whitchurch and Company Limited, Greens Supermarket, Fine Foods, S-Mart, and ACS. The findings from the December 12, 2025 exercise clearly demonstrate that the measures have been effective. Reductions were observed across the majority of products and brands monitored in all supermarkets surveyed, focusing on a representative subset of 7 products. That is approximately 23.3% of the overall product list. Notable price decreases were recorded, including luncheon meat with reductions of up to 13.36%, corned beef with reductions up to 13.07%, breakfast cereals with reductions of up to 12.3%, unsweetened biscuits with reduction of up to 18.89%, orange juice with reductions of up to 42.28%, toothpaste with reductions of up to 27.98%, tomato ketchup with reductions of up to 24.3%. Again, this is a representative sample, but these results confirm that the VAT and import duty exemptions are translating into real measurable savings for consumers at the checkout point. The exercise provides strong evidence that the policy intervention is working as intended, easing cost of living pressures and delivering tangible benefits to the households across Dominica. I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the private sector enterprises, the supermarkets, for passing on the savings to the consumers of Dominica. When it's good, we say it's good. And we thank them for that. And just to say that the supermarkets were not aware of this survey. So nobody would say that they change the prices and when we turn over back, they put the prices. No. We went in as if we were shoppers and shopping and paying attention to these prices. And so this, my dear brothers and sisters, is what we mean by people first. Always putting people first. Housing revolution, providing security, stability, hope, and dignity to our people. Across Dominica, our housing revolution continued to transform lives and communities. This year, the Housing Recovery Program was successfully completed through a loan from the World Bank. The program adopted a homeowner-driven model, the first of its kind anywhere in the Caribbean. So the homeowner selected his or her contractor. They decided what tiles they wanted, the color of tiles they wanted in their house, the paint color. They were project managers and supervisors. They were part of the reporting. They were part of the site visits. And in many instances, they jointly control the money. And so under the program, 382 climate-resilient homes were constructed across the country. 385. To date, 313 of these homes have already been handed over to beneficiaries, with the remaining units at final stages of completion and transition, and this will be handed over no later than February of next year. All contractors were local, ensuring that every dollar invested circulated within our communities. All of the materials were purchased from local supplier of building and construction materials. So small businesses and medium-sized businesses benefited, and this program also helped sustain livelihoods. Government also assisted 170 families to secure land titles, thereby allowing them to access homes they would otherwise have been denied. So people have land, but no title. So the government assisted people in doing this. People were squatting government land, government provided them a title with government land, so that they could have these homes built on their private lands, on government lands. So 170 people, had it not been facilitated by the government by way of civil title, they would have been denied approval for these homes. In addition, 924 households receive a direct technical support for home planning and for meeting resilient construction standards within their own private developments. That in itself is capacity building. That is empowerment. That is government working hand in hand with the people. The total cost of the 382 homes and the other interventions stand at $103 million for this particular housing component. But our work does not end with the success of the HRP. 7 additional housing developments are now under active construction across the country, financed through the Citizenship by Investment Program and with the developer MMCE. These developments are designed to bring further relief to families in need, expand access to safe and climate-resilient housing, and continue the transformation of our communities. It's about giving people a sense of dignity, a sense of upliftment, a sense of empowerment. All of these homes, my dear brothers and sisters, will be handed over to beneficiaries in the first quarter of 2026. That is what our People First policy delivers to our people of Dominica. On the issue of electoral reform, I must say that we have successfully started the implementation of all of the reform measures in the year 2025. The government of Dominica successfully implemented electoral reform measures in 2025, seeking to strengthen the integrity, the transparency, and credibility of our democratic system. After nearly 2 decades of national discussion, consultation, and advocacy, Parliament passed the necessary legislation to modernize Dominica's electoral framework. Central to this reform is the voter confirmation exercise, which officially commenced in October 15, 2025, and is now well underway. Through this process, registered voters are asked to visit designated confirmation centers to verify their information, present their required identification, have their photographs taken, and confirm their eligibility under the new system. This exercise allows for the cleaning and updating of the voters' lists and paves the way for the issuance of voter identification cards, ensuring that the register accurately reflects those who are legitimately entitled to vote in Dominica's election. The confirmation process has been designed to be simple, accessible, and convenient. I therefore urge every citizen, here at home and abroad, who is a registered voter to take part in the process. This is not a time to stay away or to be discouraged. It is a time to engage. Confirming your registration is your right, and it is also your responsibility. This government successful introduction of electoral reform in 2025 is also putting people first. And so far, over 9,000 Dominicans have confirmed their registration. So this is good going so far. Airport development, transforming the future. This year marked significant advancement in the construction of the International Airport project, one of the most important national development projects in Dominica's history, which will define our economic future. We are building an international airport to unlock opportunities for trade, investment, education, and direct global access. We are building it so that our young people can dream bigger. We are building it so that Dominica can stand confidently among developing nations with first-class modern infrastructure. As of December 12, 2025, construction progress reflects steady and measurable advancement across all major work streams. Total backfilling is 88.6% complete. Total excavation stands at 83.4% complete. Runway construction to formation level has reached 2,616 linear meters, representing 91.8% completion. Building foundations are 85% complete. Superstructure works have commenced and are 30% complete. The project remains on schedule for completion in the end of 2027. Importantly, the project continues to deliver strong local economic benefits. 405 Dominican workers are currently employed on site, reinforcing our commitment to local labor and community participation. This international airport project has been promised by every government, both before our independence. You go back to Frank Barron as chief minister, and every government before and after independence promised this airport as a central pillar of the country's economic transformation and fortunes. I thank God that we are now at the cusp of realizing that elusive dream for so many decades. And I am confident, by the grace of God, that when this airport project is completed, it will bring dramatic, positive transformation and benefits to all Dominicans. But equally importantly, is that this is the only developing country in the world, or only developed country in the world, you can put it all of them together, that is building an airport that at the end of the day, current and succeeding generations of leadership in the country and citizens of the country will not be burdened with repaying it. And so, my hope and prayer to this country is that look not to me, but look to the benefits of this airport to the country. This international airport should be wrapped with the national flag, that everyone should embrace it and pray to God that it will see successful completion. If we are truly interested in our personal well-being and the well-being of the country, and ensuring that our young children can look at Dominica as a place of hope for greater opportunities for them, having been successful at various training and educational institutions. And that's my hope and prayer for us. Now I now turn to quarrying activity at Debwash. And mark you, I say quarrying and not mining. There's no mining at Debwash. There's quarrying activities at Debwash. Government notes with deep concern calls from the United Workers' Party, other opposition groups, and certain environmentalists for a shutdown of quarrying operations at Debwash. It is suggested that the quarrying should take place, and I quote, somewhere else, end of quote. That doesn't affect the environment. But there is no recommendation where that, quote, end of quote, somewhere else should be. Government also notes with deep appreciation the call from the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association for, and I quote, communication, compliance, collaboration, and shared responsibility, end of quote, in working with stakeholders, as they say, to ensure that growth does not come at the cost of Dominica's national heritage. The international airport is being built for the benefit of the Dominican people and will serve every sector of our economy, including tourism, agriculture, trade, and every small business in Dominica. Naturally, such a project requires construction material. The central issue, therefore, is not whether material will be used. It must be. The real question is this: should Dominica import millions of tons of aggregates from another country, damaging natural environment of other people, while preserving ours untouched? Or should we responsibly use a small portion of our own resources to build an international airport that is essential for our children's future? I believe these are the questions we need to put to ourselves as a nation. To import aggregate would mean, one, transferring the environmental impact to another developing country. Two, taking no responsibility for the unavoidable ecological footprint of our own development. And three, exposing Dominica to unnecessary costs and unpredictable delays. And four, taking away job opportunities for our people. And five, exporting our foreign exchange, which will have a direct impact on our import bill and our foreign exchange capacities. No responsible government can justify exporting the environmental burden to another nation while refusing to utilize resources available at home, especially for a project that is national in scope and designed to uplift our own people. Government's approach is clear and principled. Use local material where feasible, economically responsible, and environmentally manageable. Ensure all quarrying and excavation activities comply fully with the Physical Planning Act, including EIAs, mitigation systems, and continuous monitoring. Enforce strong sediment control systems, rehabilitation, and environmental safeguards so that development and environmental protection proceed together. Pause or adjust operations immediately where impacts exceed acceptable thresholds. To be clear, responsible, regulated extraction for a national development project is fundamentally different from reckless exploitation of the environment. And we have to make that distinction as a nation. The government's obligation is to strike a balance in which we protect Dominica's natural heritage while building the infrastructure our country urgently needs now more than ever. So the choice is not between development and the environment. The choice is between responsible use of our own resources and exporting the environmental costs to another country while undermining our own development. The Lord gave us resources to help us, but we have to do it responsibly. And this is what we're seeking to do as a nation, do it responsibly. So this government, which I have the honor to lead, chooses responsibility, sustainability, and national progress. And so we will continue the engagement, and I intend, and the Ministry of the Environment has been engaging. They'll be visiting again tomorrow. Planning and all of the government authorities are engaged, and I myself will be part of the public engagement and consultation on an ongoing basis, because I say so with a great sense of humility. When it comes to the environment, people know where I stand on the environment. And I don't speak about the environment. I practice preservation. I practice conservation. I practice reforestation. I practice good farming practices that enhance the protection of the ecological systems and habitats. And so we will never destroy the environment. But at the end of the day, there must be a balance. If we want progress, we're going to have to do something. It has to be done responsibly, and that's what we are focusing on, doing it responsibly in a sustainable manner. Looking ahead, I will not go into great detail this morning, but as I end, I want to highlight just a few of the major projects now underway across our country, which are expected to come on stream in 2026, and that will have a direct and lasting impact on our economy and on the daily lives of our people. The Northern Road Improvement Project from Portsmouth to Hatton Garden will begin in late 2026. This major rehabilitation initiative, funded by the government of the People's Republic of China, will deliver new bridges and culverts, slope stabilization, road widening, and retaining walls along the Portsmouth to Hatton Garden corridor, in keeping with the commitment made by President, His Excellency Xi Jinping, during my official visit to China last year. In the south, the Lubbe to Granby Road, when completed, will improve safety, reduce travel times, and enhance access for road users. We are also investing heavily in our capital. The road enhancement project will get underway next year, resulting in upgraded roads, improved drainage, and better traffic flow. In the area of education, construction continues on 6 new primary schools, supported by the government of the People's Republic of China. These schools represent an investment in our children and our teachers, and will provide safe, modern learning environments to improve educational outcomes. In the area of agriculture and food security, construction is advanced on a modern national abattoir and a citrus certification and processing facility. These are strategic investments aimed at strengthening our agricultural value chain, improving food security standards, and reducing imports. We'll also witness the start of the construction of the cruise village, which will usher in even more benefits to our people. Agriculture remains a major pillar of our economy, and all of these facilities I spoke about will help move the sector from subsistence to greater commercial viability. In the tourism sector, we continue work on the big ticket projects, such as the Cabridge Marina and the Dominica cable car project. These initiatives are designed to expand the range and quality of tourism experiences, increase spending in surrounding communities, and create jobs. The construction of homes, home repairs and renovation, and general support to our citizens will continue in 2026. The 2% housing program will be in full implementation mode come 2026. The construction of the international airport will be even more visible to the naked eyes as it takes a greater shape. A revamped Dominica Youth Business Trust and more targeted financial and technical support to the youth who are involved in entrepreneurship and small business development will be more evident in 2026. And we are moving decisively toward energy security with the commissioning of geothermal energy plant, which will position Dominica as a leader in clean, renewable energy in the region. And on the issue of national security, I can tell the country, rest assured, that this government will continue to take a zero tolerance towards any criminal behavior in our country. And we're getting additional support from the United States government where our national security is concerned. And so rest assured to the citizens that this senseless actions taking place in the country, we intend to put a stop to it. But for us to be successful at that, we're going to require the support of everyone in our society to play the part in providing the security that we all deserve in our country. And so, my dear friends, every initiative I outlined today, the minimum wage, removal of customs and VAT on essential items, housing and infrastructural developments, is anchored in our philosophy that the purpose of government is to uplift the human person. We do what we do because we believe every child deserves equal opportunity. We believe no elderly person should be left alone or abandoned. We believe every family should have a safe home. We believe development must reach the farmer, the fisher, the shopkeeper, the teacher, the caregiver, not just the privileged few. We believe that a resilient nation is one which places its people at the center of every policy and every project. We believe that there must be a strong private sector contributing to national development and job creation. We believe that every young person should be supported in his or her endeavors in the realization of his or her dream. This people-first approach to development is the legacy of this government, and I am so happy that we're keeping true to this legacy. I will pause for now to allow the media to ask the questions. before I take my seat, I want to recognize the Secretary to the Cabinet, Ms. Karen Privo, who is a constant at the press conferences, the Press Secretary, and the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, and the Permanent Secretaries who were present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your very comprehensive remarks, your review of our accomplishments for 2025 and the look ahead to 2026. The staff of the Office of the Prime Minister will assist with the facilitation of the mics, and I now open the floor for your questions, beginning with the man the Prime Minister has called the Dean of the Media, Curtis Matthew.
One. Thank you very much, Dion Jura Smith. Good morning to everyone here at the State House Conference Center. Prime Minister, I have two questions for you in this round before I make way for Colonel John Baptist. And my first question is about the non-appearance of an opposition leader in the parliament. So, in other words, how do we solve the problem as a country where we have no opposition leader in our parliament? So that would be my first question. The second question is, will the government, before the 31st of December, will the government confirm the appointment of acting chief, Mr. Corbett, and his deputy, since their acting appointments will expire by the 31st of this month? And the police have outlined, in fact, last week, the police outlined a number of success stories for the year 2025, things like major drug seizures, firearm seizures. They even spoke about Police Week, where, in fact, 37 officers were, in fact, awarded. But, Prime Minister, there is a concern that, that of homicides. In fact, there were 2 over the weekend, taking the numbers to about 22 for the year, just around 22 for the year. People are speaking about the homicides increase. Is the government concerned about the number of homicides we are seeing of late? I will come back very soon, I'm sure, when I get a chance, but I'll make way now for Colonel John Baptist.
Thank you very much. In respect to the position of leader of the opposition, it is not for the government to decide who should be, but the government appreciates that there ought to be a leader of the opposition. The Constitution provided for that. The reality is that you had a leader of the opposition in the statutory term. As you know, there are 2 members. They're independent members of the House, and the Constitution says that the leader of the opposition shall be the person who controls or who appears to be to have the support, what's the effect, have the support of the majority of the minority members on the opposite side. So no one, based on the provisions of the Constitution, has the majority of the minority on the opposite side, because you have 2. So for one to be, the other one must say, I support. That's what happened in the first instance. But that did not happen. What we have done, which is uncharacteristic, it doesn't happen anywhere, is that where you don't have a leader opposition, is that we have allowed for the member of Marigot on 2 occasions to respond to the Minister of Finance budget address. And not only to allow him to respond, but to give him equal time to respond, so as we allow for the opposition members to have a bigger voice, though their numbers are few, in comparison to that of the government. And I believe that it has been very helpful, it has been very constructive, and I think that it has elicited a lot of debate and discussion in terms of the submission of the opposition member in response to the Minister of Finance budget address. So our hope and prayer is that there should be, but it's not for us to determine. The only other option is for one member on the government side to go across and to give support to one person. And they'll be on opposition. But if I do that, you're going to say, look, Skerrit taking charge of parliament and so on. And there's no democracy and a one-party state and so forth. So that's the only option that's available, really. But we look forward to that. But the reality is, the parliament meets, the parliament debates, members are allowed to speak as per the rules of the House. There is no constricting of members to speak. I believe that the opposition members get a lot of latitude to speak in the House, and I think it is good for the national debate and for engagement at the Parliament. So that's me. In respect to the True Police, once these appointments are made, then I'm sure you'll be among the first to know, because it will be made public by the office of the Prime Minister on this issue. So that will be. I don't conduct such business in open like this. So, but certainly once the decision is made, then you will know. On the issue of homicides, it's always a concern. Whether it's 1 or whether it's 2 or 12, it is a concern. It rattles the psyche of the citizens and residents of the country, and it brings trauma to communities and families. But at the end of the day, for us to see these things going away, all of us must play our part. We must assist the police in apprehending those who are involved in this, because somebody would have seen, somebody knows something. We are a gossiping nation. We know a lot of business. You know what I'm saying? We are a storytelling nation. So how we don't know about these things? We have to know. We know everybody's business, except when it comes to providing the police with information to apprehend criminals. You know, understand? Saying we know things about people that people don't even know about themselves. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so we have to get serious about this stuff. And when the police and the government are taking action, we must provide the support. You recall, and when we brought the RSS down earlier this year to assist with eradicating guns in our illegal firearms in our street, we were criticized for it. We were criticized for it, and all the government has been doing is employing all the resources, all the strategies at its disposal to ensure that we maintain our country as a peaceful nation, as a nation that's thriving on security. Because the last thing I want in Dominica is for us to be fearful to go to the hot water, to go to the beach, go to the river at any time of day. So far, thank God, we can do that without any real fear of our safety. We all can walk the streets of Dominica without any community in Dominica, without fear of our safety. You understand? I can go to any part of Dominica without security, and I will not feel unsafe. You understand? And I think we have to maintain that level of security in our country. But for us to maintain this, we have to have the support. Now, the illegal firearms coming to the country is a major source of this. It's a major source of this. This is where the illegal guns have been used, and we've been working with the United States government, and they've been very helpful, I must say, in that regard. We have purchased at a very high cost to the Treasury scanners. We now have a scanner in Portsmouth. We have in Roseau. We're increasing our surveillance, everything, and so on. But at the end of the day, the police can do so much. The state can put so much resources. But if we do not have the society support, because crime is a societal issue, and for it to have a solution, we have to have a societal response to it. So we will do everything possible. But certainly, whether it's 1 or 2, the number is inconsequential. It is really the activities that we have to curtail. So whether it's 1 incident or 20 incidents, it's one too many. And we have to press on the accelerator on this and to do what we have to do. And I think too that's where the courts come in. And the courts, I try not to say anything about the courts because you can never quote me as criticizing the courts. So I'm not here criticizing the courts. What I'm saying is that the courts are part of the society. A judge and a magistrate live in the society. And they must be aware of the concerns of the society in the application of the law. So if you get one guy for a gun and you send him for 5 years, and you get another guy for a gun and you charge him $7,000, what happens? You understand what I'm saying? So we have to look at the application because the law as they stand is draconian in nature. You know, we amended the laws. This law is draconian in nature. You know, it is very strong. It is very robust. I think that's why we have to get the application of the law and understand. This is not for the executive to do this, but for the judiciary to deal with. But I think that the society must feel that every arm of the government is doing what they must to protect the citizens of the country. So Parliament, the executive, which is the cabinet / the government, and all the government agencies, the police and customs and immigration, etc., etc. And then you have the judiciary. But as the executive, as the parliament, we have no control or rule over the judiciary. That's a completely and absolutely independent arm of government. And I think everybody has to play the role. Sometimes when you say this thing, people take it personally, they believe criticizing. No. I think everybody has to stand the test of scrutiny. And if we're going to have a solution, then we must have an honest and fair and transparent conversation about this matter. But rest assured, the government is not sitting on its laurels at all on this matter. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Rhonda Luke, freelance journalist. Prime Minister, while you're on this topic of gun violence, in July of this year, government announced a 7-point plan to tackle gun violence here in Dominica. I know that some of this initiative has been, we saw the gun amnesty, but can you provide us an update as it pertains to the removal of tint on rental vehicles, as also the installation of cameras nationwide, and you said you would start with the city first. In 2026, can we see those updates coming through?
Sure. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, a number of the measures have been implemented. There's a dedicated team dealing with the eradication of illegal firearms in the country. We have done the amnesty, and there are a number of other things that I can't speak about as part of the details of the plan. But the two outstanding matters, one with the cameras, as far as I understand it, that we're receiving proposals from various private sector suppliers of that infrastructure. And of course, in 2026, we'll make a deliberate decision on this, starting with the city of Roosevelt, as you quite rightly remind us. And the issue of tint, I'm a bit disappointed that we have not implemented this. I think that was a simple measure. That should have been implemented by now. And so I think the Ministry of National Security Police will give you an update on this one, why they haven't implemented that particular one, which is a simple measure, a simple SRO. You can't sleep on those things. Okay, yes.
Carlisle John Baptist, I want to go regional. It seems obvious that the U.S. intends to enter into Venezuela. CARICOM has been saying the region is a zone of peace. I'm hearing that word all the time, peace, peace. What does CARICOM intend to do as it relates to that situation? Like I said, it seems very obvious. So where does CARICOM stand as it relates to that? My next question will be local. We have a serious traffic congestion on island, especially when we have boats on the bayfront and at Woodbridge Bay Port. I know some years ago, there was this bypass along by Suki on the southern part of the island. But it's a nightmare coming on the southern part, and when you drive down Canefield area, the line of traffic is gone past Linus. It's very, very difficult. And if you have an emergency, I'm not sure what is going to happen. What does government intend to do to assist persons in that regard? Also, Prime Minister, it's been a while that you spoke about official residence, your official residence. Can you please give us an update as to where we are, please?
All right. Thank you very much for your questions. The issue of the military presence in the Caribbean waters by the United States government, we see publications in the media on this. The U.S. has indicated that this is to fight drug trafficking. In Dominica's case and the wider CARICOM's case, we've had excellent collaboration and cooperation with the United States government in fighting illicit activities, drug trafficking. The U.S. has been a #1 partner of Dominica and continues to be, even today, in terms of their investment in Dominica for national security in place. We just had the installation of a radar that was a great United States when I visited the Southcom a couple of years ago to enhance the capacity of the Coast Guard to deal with our marine spaces. And so that was recently installed, and there are a number of other major infrastructure projects, fire station in Laplane that the Americans are financing. They'll also be financing a major facility for us to deal with the storage of the police, armory, and other matters where national security is concerned. So on the issue of fighting crime and so on, the U.S. is our #1 partner, and we look forward to that continued collaboration. We've always maintained that the Caribbean should be a zone of peace, and that any thought of military actions in the Caribbean should be reconsidered. We believe that dialogue and diplomatic channels are better ways to solve problems, differences, views that do not coincide, and this is what we're urging in this circumstance. So this is what, because certainly if there's a breakout anywhere in the Caribbean Sea, it will have a serious negative impact on all of us, and our economies are so vulnerable to external shocks and natural disasters. For this to happen, then you have a permanent negative impact on every one of our countries, and so we're urging that there be dialogue and diplomacy. And of course, Dominica is a good friend of both the United States and Venezuela, and in the past we've worked together as an intermediary, and we're prepared to do so in this current situation if there are messages from either side to each other that Dominica believe that it is well placed to provide that service. But so we hope and pray that nothing happens, and I think that the U.S. President himself has been involved in a number of negotiations across the world, and has used the U.S. Influence to bring a number of conflicts to an end. And so I think that if I would urge the United States, the United States President, to continue on that trajectory, to advance that noble cause and actions that he has been able to achieve over the years. So this is where we stand on the matter. Related to traffic congestion, obviously you have limited capacity in widening a number of the roads that you mentioned because of the original development plan of these communities, roads on either houses on either side of the roads, and the only option you have is to the sea, and even that will have an impact on the fishermen and the trade, because all of the West Coast people use the West Coast as their fishing places. So all of these things that you have to take into consideration. The reality is we have a lot of vehicles coming into the country. It's a sign of progress. It's a sign that people have more money. People condition has improved. People now feel that they can go in a bank and take a loan, or they could save to buy a vehicle, and they're doing that to take a train to school, to go to work, and it's a good sign on the economy, and so forth. This is why we're encouraging, by way of reduction of some of the duties and some of the excise tax, to make sure that people get better vehicles so that they can, vehicles can last a little longer and so forth. But that's the reality we have in the world. The entire world is confronted with a traffic problem, and we're not like Florida. Florida is lucky that it can put passovers and bypasses and all kind of stuff. And if you go to the United States from JFK to Manhattan, it's difficult to get to the city, because they themselves are constricted by the houses on either side of the road. They're not like a Florida that has the space, that has the land, and they could do those things. So it's a real traffic problem. Now I believe that even when we do the roads enhancement, we will see some improvements. But the reality is, Kala, every one of us want to drive to our work, and everybody is looking to a solution, but nobody is prepared to play a part in that solution. Now, if we're to say, as a government, as a country, let us try something. If we park our vehicle home and take a bus for one day, let us try it. Let's agree that all of us with private vehicles, leave it home, take a bus. Will we see and we do it once a week? Is that something the country would like to try out? They did that in China. China had a serious traffic problem, and they decided one day, no private vehicles, or if you go in, you have to carpool. And in that day, they saw over 1 million cars off the streets, and there was no real congestion. So we have to look at this thing. Now, you have a couple at the home, husband has a vehicle, wife has one, and you have 2 children. The 2 children have their own vehicles. Everybody live and work on their home on their own vehicle. You understand? So there's not enough carpooling taking place. So it's really that people now have access to and it's a suddenly growing economy. Because if you look at Dominica 10 years ago, and look at it now in terms of vehicle ownership, home ownership, I mean, this is why the government has taken this decision, for example, where home construction is concerned, not to sell agricultural land, but to lease it. Because you now have where we had prime agricultural land have been turned into housing development, accessible lands. And so we have to put a stop to this, and the way we can put a stop to it by preventing the sale of it. So you farmers will have access to land, but not ownership, that you can sell the land tomorrow and people start building. And so this is a challenge that we face with. We're looking at solutions at the port area with some bypasses there. We're looking at, we'll be revisiting in 2026 the bypass of the gardens so that we don't have traffic in the gardens. Because I believe that the gardens, that's my personal view, it's not the view of the government. My personal view is that the gardens should be a pedestrian park. People can walk freely. But this idea of a trailer truck with a 40-foot container passing in the gardens at 9 o'clock, and you have 1,000 tourists and school children walking the streets and having to look left and right, it's not right. So I think if we, this is where we're going to talk about the environment and to have the pollution in the national park and to reduce any carbon footprint in the national park. And these are the things I think we need to talk about in the country. And this is my personal views. I try not to impose my personal views, on this, because I might be a little too radical in some things. So I am very careful in that, But the issue of the official residence, that I'll give you one promise, Carla, in the country, one promise. When I leave this office, I want only one responsibility. That is to oversee the construction of official residence for the Prime Minister of the country. That's what I want to do. Because I believe that we have to maintain the office, not the office holder. People look at the office holder, but the office. This is why I insisted as Prime Minister that we build an official residence for the head of state, the president. We can't have a president renting an office by the side of the road. Nobody will respect us as a nation. And if you look at it, way back when the British were there, they always ensured that they got the best piece of land in the countries. And they built an official residence for the governor. That's how this building came about. That was the governor's residence. You understand? That was the governor's residence. And so, and even before we became an independent nation, the British always ensured that the head of government had a residence. And this is how Monroe came about. Before independence, because Lebanon wasn't an independent nation when he was chief minister. He was a chief minister and premier. And so we have to look at those issues. And then, just recently, we got a vehicle for the prime minister, and I understand there was a big talk about it, a little Toyota vehicle. All man are driving a Toyota vehicle in Dominica. I mean, you should be chastising the prime minister for buying a Toyota, not a Range Rover or Bentley or something. I mean, my brother, come on now, man. I mean, a Toyota vehicle, Land Cruiser, all dog can have the thing. I mean, Prime Minister, come on, you don't buy that vehicle 2025, Prime Minister. But by the way, the vehicle is a gift to the office of the Prime Minister. And so the Treasury did not pay for it. You understand? It's a gift. but to say the Prime Minister, buy a Toyota Skerrit have their boy, and so on. You saw a Range Rover, man. I mean, come on, man. That's what the children are saying, you know. They say, we Toyota that way, brother. If you tell a child what vehicle you're going to tell a Toyota, come on, man. You have to be better than that, come on. But so that's it. But please, anybody else, please?
Kyrie FM, good afternoon all. Mr. Prime Minister, my question is regional.
Yeah, sure.
Since the establishment of the Citizenship by Investment Authority, has Dominica made any improvements? And while we're on that, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has announced its plans to have a CBI program. Will they be part of the authority? Thank you.
Yeah. On the first question, I can confirm that every participating member has passed legislation to give effect to the regional regulatory framework. Since that time, they have drafted some regulations, some are still undrafted, so waiting for those regulations because they must go hand in hand with the Parent Act. And secondly, they've also presented a draft budget and structure. We mandated that the interim team meets with the financial secretaries of the member states, and that meeting was held last week to review the budget. And so further reviews are being done. Once those further reviews are done, they will submit it to us, and we'll host a meeting among ourselves as heads to finalize the budget. So we are waiting for the regulations. So I believe that based on where I see things are now, I believe that we will see a full implementation of this measure by the middle of 2026. And because the unit, when appointed, would have to appraise themselves of the legislation, how the system works, and understand how they're going to have what kind of relations they're going to have. They have to study the law and the supporting regulations. So it'll take some time to put themselves together. So I would estimate by mid-2026 that will take full effect. In respect of the new government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I understand that the new Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Friday, has made inquiries about this regional framework. And we are prepared to provide whatever support the government of St. Vincent may need if they intend on, when it appears that they intend on implementing a CBI program. So this is a matter for national debate in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But if a government were to reach out to us, as would normally be the case, in Dominica's case, we're more than prepared to provide whatever guidance or advice or suggestions, the learned experiences on this program, and provide that support to a sister member country. And so the simple answer to your question is yes, we'll provide support to them.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, I have a few questions. The first one has to do with housing. Earlier on, you mentioned some of the achievements of the government regarding housing. But recently in Parliament, the member for Salisbury had raised some concerns as it relates to housing in her constituency. So I was wondering if there are any updates as to how soon the people of Kulibistri, I believe, will see some relief. Also, with regards to sports, the point round facility, just last week we got the confirmation from World Athletics that they will be giving assistance for the construction of a synthetic track. I'm just wondering from government's point of view, how soon can we expect any sort of work to begin on that project? And as it relates also to Windsor Park, this morning we heard the Honorable Minister relaying some concerns, or well, maybe not concerns, but some reasons as to the delays in the lighting of the Windsor Park. So can we get some more clarification on that as well?
Yeah. I will invite Honorable Oscar George to speak to the Windsor Park and the sports facility at Point Rung, and the Minister for Housing after will respond on the housing question.
All right, good morning, everybody. Well, Gavin, thank you for your question. As it relates to the synthetic track, yes, we got confirmation from World Athletics that we will be a beneficiary, well, one among 10 beneficiaries globally for support for laying the track. You may also know that the government has taken on its own to develop a master plan for the area. And long and short, the master plan involves the design, the detailed designs, costings, layout concepts, because we are also planning on putting a Olympic-sized swimming pool. So in our discussions with World Athletics, they indicated that in the first quarter of 2026, we'll be ready for starting works. They are now finalizing the MOU, which they will share with the representative body, which is the Dominica Athletics Association, and then that will be submitted to us. But the long and short answer to your question is, in the first quarter of 2026, we expect actual works in Dominica and, of course, in the other member states as well. As it relates to the Lighten at Windsor Park, as you said, I gave some updates last week. One of the issues we had with the lighting project is that the poles were not something that you could pick up in a store. So you had to basically, based on your assessments at Windsor Park, put in an order for manufacturing these poles from scratch. And that was the cause of the delay in India. They've been manufactured in India. They did some further amendments to the specifications. So that took a bit longer than we expected, and that is really the main cause for the delay. But as we speak, all the items are now being shipped. Well, they're en route to Dominica as we speak. All the underground works has been done, as you may be aware, in terms of foundations and running of the lines underground. We're just waiting on this consignment of the poles, 4 poles, and all the other infrastructure, including the control rooms, the generator pads, all the other accessories being part of this project. So I ask for continued patience on this project, but we expect everything to be in Dominica next month. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Concerning the question about the people of Holy Mystery, there were a number of them that we were carded for relocation. But during this time, many of them opted for land opportunities, which we have facilitated in selling government land at a reduced price. So a number of them have purchased land from the government and built their own homes. A few of them moved to different areas, some migrated, and we have facilitated quite a few people financially in building back some of their homes, fixing their current homes. Like I said to the Member of Parliament for the Salisbury constituency, this constituency, not because it's an opposition seat, means that it has been abandoned. Housing is a right, and it is for everyone across Dominica. And we have made significant interventions in terms of financing. I believe close to 2 million was allocated to that constituency, and it was distributed through the local village council. As far as I can remember, there are just less than 5, I would say, 5 households which we have to facilitate, and we will address this in 2026, but quite a bit of interventions have been made throughout this area, facilitating all those who required assistance.
Well, thanks to Honorable Popon Skerrit as well as Senator Oscar George. We'll continue taking your question. I see Ronaldo has a question. Yes, Julie, please go ahead. Identify yourself and your media house, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Congratulations, Prime Minister and your administration on bringing the 2025 political year to a close. So many citizens have observed transformational initiatives across Dominica. However, we still have a lot of people saying that they are not aware as to what's happening. So with that in mind, what steps has the government taken to help the public understand policies and also for them to know what are the future plans for 2026 and going forward?
And that was Julie Roberts of the media, they're asking.
Kyrie FM.
Kyrie FM, thank you. Any other questions before the Prime Minister? Yes, Matthias.
Good morning, everybody. Matt Peltier, Q95. PM, we spoke of debauch and the quote-unquote environmental disaster taking place. Everybody seemed concerned about that. As a matter of fact, I've been invited to another meeting in the Carib territory this afternoon because we have some geologists from the region investigating what's going on. So clearly it's a concern and everybody seems to be concerned. Hoteliers have called and said, people are calling them saying, what is happening in Dominica because of this, quote unquote, as you said, environmental issue going on in debauch. Was debauch, sir, when the airport was conceptualized in terms of the planning, was that always an alternative site? And you spoke about alternative sites, meaning there's no other, we have tested sites on the West Coast. Why can't the government turn to this? My second question is, I think sometime in the past, right here, you made some promise in terms of addressing the water issues and prices on water. People are still concerned about that. So can you speak to that? Whether we're gonna, just my two questions for now. Thank you.
On the first question with regards to the number of things that we're doing in this country, policy-wise, project-wise, that the public are saying that they're not aware of it, I just believe that the government has to explain more to the people. The government has to engage the people more by way of providing them updates and site visits, further explanation. I believe that the government has to appear in the eyes of the public to be more accessible to the people and to be more visible. You know, we cannot expect someone else to tell our story. We have to tell our story. And I believe that the cabinet of ministers need to account way more than they have been to the people of the country on their stewardship, the projects that are taking place, what are the benefits to the people, what are the challenges, how are we addressing those challenges, and to explain to people more. It's as simple as that. Because at the end of the day, power belongs to the people, and we are working on their behalf. And I think that we have to use all the medium available to explain to the people. I also believe that senior public officers have a duty to bring attention to what's taking place in the respective ministries. And I think so. I think it's going to have to be a collective effort on all to provide the accurate information to the public. And I'm hoping that there can be a dramatic change in 2026, we will see more consultations, we will see more engagement, we will see more town hall meetings. But on the other side too, I believe that that citizens must avail themselves to such engagements. So if a government is coming to a community and you're too busy to come to the meeting, then you can't blame somebody for not knowing something happening or there's an opportunity. You have to make the time. So it's going to be a two-way street of the citizens playing their part and the government playing its part. But I believe that the government has a higher responsibility to the people than the people have to the government, and therefore the bulk of the engagement must be driven by the government. And having such press conferences and allowing the press to ask any question the press wishes to ask and respectfully responding there. And I will say, on irrespect to the press, generally speaking, that they have been pretty fair in the reporting. Sometimes they don't get it completely correct, and but I think generally there's no real malice, and we have to separate a blogger from the press and the media and so on. I'm talking about the mainstream press, not necessarily a talk show that is driven by a particular motivation, and one understands that. You understand? But in terms of the the mainstream media, one can appreciate that they've been very fair and balanced, and they are also accessible. I think we have to take advantage of the access, and so that they can transmit information on our behalf and share it with us. But I believe in engagement. That's why I never support the idea of government just showing up somewhere and doing a project without engaging the people before. And I think that we have to learn from our shortcomings and try to address them and to improve on our engagement. And I think that there has to be more regular engagement of the people at all stages, and not take it for granted that the people know or the people understand. Because in an era of misinformation and disinformation and AI and so forth, then the truth matters more now than it did 20 years ago. And so we have to provide that kind of information and so on. Because the reality is there's a lot taking place in Dominica. There's a lot that needs to be done. One cannot discount that. But one cannot take away from the fact that a lot of things are happening in this country. From a policy standpoint, from a program standpoint, from a project standpoint, from an investment standpoint, you will never stop needing things until you're dead. And even when you're dead, we're still praying for you. So, yes, and so, but we are getting somewhere as a country, and we are seeing the fruits of our investments of the government. And I think that the majority of people appreciate that. In respect to Debosh, Matt, you talk about the West Coast, but all of the quarry operations in the West Coast has an environmental impact. All. We cannot escape, no matter where in Dominica you go, you cannot escape that it will cause an impact on the environment. Now, people will tell you that where there's an impact, there can be a mitigation measure. So if you, and this is what the Ministry of Environment is doing, they gave me a report this morning, and this is what they're doing now, engaging the developers and the contractor to look at native species of plants that can be replanted in the area, so that when you clear the area, that the trees will grow back, because we will deliberately plant trees and put in back the vegetation so that it gets soil cover and retains its original natural beauty over time. You understand? So anywhere you go in Dominica, one will see the impact on the environment, and you will see the impact of any quarry operations. Some of them are along streams. Some of them, all the sediments go into the sea. It will impact fisheries. It will impact the coral reefs, and it will impact the way of life of many people. We've had many studies on those things. If you go to take it to Vegas, you'll have challenges there. If you take it to Portsmouth, you'll have challenges there. Anywhere in Dominica, you'll have challenges. And just imagine transporting material from the West Coast all the way to the airport site. The number of communities is going to be impacted. You see the impact on the roads, for example, just between Debosh and Pig already. And so even that is forming part of the responsibility of the developer and the contractor to reinstate the roads after this project, because they're the direct cause of the impact of the roads with the heavy equipment. So all of these things have been taken into consideration. Now, when we decided to build the airport, we did study a number of areas, and Debosh was one of them. But one will appreciate that the sheer amount of material that you need for the airport it is either the country takes a deliberate decision that is going to import all of the aggregate and sand from another country whose environment would have to be impacted as well. And we speak here, Dominica, about imports, about foreigners, about foreign this and foreign that, importing, and why we're not using our own natural this and buy local and eat local. How do we therefore justify that we're building an airport? We're building an airport that you need the material. And with this runway and the type of soil that we need, this is why CR5, and I give them credit for that, They're very deliberate with the engineering, very careful with the engineering. And this is why you're saying to us, Prime Minister, for us to give you a sound runway, because we are building a runway for an Airbus to land, a 777 to land. And if you're a 777 with 600, 500, 400 people to land on the type of soil there, you must have the correct aggregate, the density. So it's not about we have stones elsewhere. It's the density, the quality of the stones. That is important. Not every stone you can use for every kind of construction. And I'm saying so based on advice. All right? And so they wanted to get the proper density. They went to Ansdeme, they went many places, and they said to us, Prime Minister, this is the area that we can get the quality of stone that we need based on the tests that we have conducted. You understand? And so, and I think that every action is taken to mitigate against the impact. And the Ministry of the Environment and Planning have given advice and suggestions on how to mitigate against certain things, and there's a long list of actions that are being incorporated in the process going forward. I accept that we have to enhance our communication, we have to enhance our consultation, but I would caution those who are publishing statements based on hearsay, and to not go on publish statements that can have a consequential impact, an existential impact on our survival. But there are some people who are opposed to the airport, and they believe that they got an opportunity now to speak not about they've been against the airport, so let's talk about the wash. And we have to resist, and resist we shall, those who believe that Dominica doesn't need an international airport. Dominica absolutely needs an international airport. Absolutely needs an international airport. If we want the country to get where the country is going to go, to bring the kind of revenues into the country, foreign exchange to the country, jobs for the people, more people can be part of the prosperity of the country and realize the dynamic Dominica that we're talking about and we're implementing. We need the infrastructure. This is why we have to build a new port. Because it cannot be right that every time a Christmas comes, we're not getting our goods because there's a high tide, the boat cannot dock, then we have a cruise ship, the cruise ship docks for the day, the cargo boat's out. We have to have two dedicated facilities, one for cruise ship and one for cargo boats. Because more and more people want to come to Dominica, and we have to ensure that we can facilitate them. We can facilitate the trade that's coming in. That somebody should not be staying outside the Woodbridge Bay and seeing the cargo ship out there. Their goods that they have to sell for Christmas is on this goal, and Christmas is coming. And Christmas is coming. So when we decide we're going to start the port in Canefield, we're going to have an impact on the marine environment. We'll have an impact. You must have an impact. People may not be able to go and bathe on the beach there anymore. There's a sacrifice that we have to make. Find a beach elsewhere if you want progress. That's the reality. These are the realities. You build a hotel, there's a beach, you take out these stones from the beach, crabs die. You're affecting the ecosystem, the natural habitat. But we need the hotel rooms, we need the jobs. So these are the realities that we face in this country. And I feel sometimes a bit despondent as the leader of the country, because every time you have to do something that will benefit the people, we embroil ourselves as a nation. We embroil ourselves as a nation on negativity. And I ask myself, is this country mine alone, or does it belong to everybody? It belongs to all of us, and all of us must play our part. We must have views. We must have different views. I accept that. But let our views be one to advance, not to hold back. You understand? So anywhere you go with the quarry. So to go and bring a geologist, what is the benefit of being a geologist in the country? Who is that geologist? What are you going to tell you? What's the motivation? You understand what I'm saying? So, I mean, people are free to do what they wish to do. But at the end of the day, we must put Dominica first and not our personal motivations. That's what we have to do. And so I accept this stuff, and we will take all of the necessary actions. take all of the necessary actions to mitigate against the impact. But we cannot say elsewhere and not tell me where elsewhere. Do we get it from St. Vincent? What are they going to do with St. Vincent? They're going to have to impact the environment. Do we get it from Canada? They're going to have to affect the environment and maybe even an indigenous community in Canada to get the sand and stone stores. So we have to decide. And so, and I say, I'm engaging the public in the greatest sense of respect, the greatest sense of sincerity, that we're saying, instead of us trying to bore holes in the boat that we're all on, let us see how we can bail water out of it by coming together and discussing these things and how we can go ahead with this thing. But I don't want anybody in this world to have the impression given by anyone that the country is involved in mining and we're destroying the environment and with this and with that. And no, this is not true. This is absolutely not true. We recognize that there were some things that should have been done differently in the start, and this is why we're correcting those, and we're moving ahead with the right things that we have started. And to ensure that at the end of the day, yes, there'll be an impact, and if there's an impact, what can we do? This is why I said in my opening statement that there are thresholds. Once they go beyond those thresholds in terms of impact, then they'll be stopped until those that can come back to the range that we require. And of course, the sedimentation pits that have been advised to be done, more of them, that will be part of the process, and so forth. But anytime you do anything, whether it's a home, multi-building, or a bridge, it's going to have an impact on the environment. We're going to have to cut trees. We're going to have to dig the soil and damage the earthworm's natural habitat. The earthworm's contributing to the quality of the soil. You know, there may be crabs in there. We have to affect it. And this is why you realize now you have more agoutis among us than before, because we have built homes and developments where the agouti was in a natural habitat. You understand? So before you would go out in the bush to get a man, you could match, you remember that? And you wouldn't catch one. But now, and you could tell me, look me, kill me. You understand? So that's the reality that we are doing there. On the water issue, Matt, quickly, we were a bit slow on this water review, and I give you assurance that in the new year that'll be fixed. We take note of the concerns that the public has raised. They have a point. We accept that they have a point, but I think we were a bit slow on this, and hoping that in 2026 we can fix it. Okay, and go more on the consumption side rather than impose it on a particular fixed rate of increase. Yeah. Yes, please, ma'am.
In this year's budget address, we heard of the plans to acquire the former Dominica brewery site for the establishment of the Lubia, a state-of-the-art water bottling facility. We heard that government is in negotiations with a foreign company at this point. Are you in a position right now to tell us who that foreign company is and the status of these negotiations? Yeah. I'd also like to find out, as it pertains to education reform, that has been a major topic for the year. You have discussed that each child doesn't learn on the same level. Now, government introduced the universal secondary education. Something that worked before we heard was the GSP program. Any consideration as we move into the new year to reintroduce the GSP program in some of our schools here on Island for students who are not on that level to enter the secondary school? I'd also like to find out about customs here in Dominica. I mean, if you ask anybody, Prime Minister, $150, and then you have to pay you have to pay some sort of custom fees. Any plans in the new year as we move forward? Things are increasing worldwide to update that where
that's 150 US.
EC, EC, 150 EC.
The 150 EC package.
Yes, once a package. Things are increasing worldwide.
So what would be your suggestion? What will increase it?
Increase maybe $200, $300, some sort of update. Can government put some kind of plans in place in the new year where it will make it a bit easier for citizens as it pertains to ordering?
Sure. Okay, I'll answer the first question. I'll allow the Minister of Education and the Minister of Finance to respond to the respective questions. But with regards to the brewery, we have signed an MOU with a company. The company is an Italian-based company on this. And we're also in discussion with the property owners on sale of the property. Once we finalize on this, the government will compulsory acquire. But will compulsory require in the public interest, but the Italian company will pay the full amount that we've negotiated. So we're basically acquiring on their behalf. We've done that many times before, and so this isn't in case to truncate the process of negotiation. The state will move to compulsory require, but we're in discussion with them. We don't want to force the state on them or to impose the state on them. We're in discussion with them. So once they agree, because sometimes you can go through a private treaty, but that takes longer than compulsory acquisition. So sometimes the land property owner says, go ahead and do the compulsory acquisition. And once you have 2 publications, then the property belongs to the states while you continue your negotiation. So we are adopting the compulsory acquisition route as provided for in the State Lands Act. And so I'm hoping that we can conclude that early in 2026 and pass on the property to the developer, to the investor to move ahead and so on. Okay? And this is complete foreign direct investment into Dominica. I will pass on to the Minister of Education, and then the Minister of Finance will respond to the other question.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, first of all, I will say that education reform is not like a unit or a single anything. Education reform involves many aspects because education itself has many components. So when you speak of education reform, you look at what you want your country to look like in the next 10 years. You have to look at what our capital projects are and what the needs of our country will be as it pertains to personnel, which will now lead you to look at curriculum change, which will lead you to look at maybe personnel changes. And so for us, we've come a long way in that we have achieved universal primary education, universal secondary education, and universal tertiary education as it pertains to Dominica State College. So now we have to look at each branch based on what we want, what changes we would like to see at early childhood, what changes we would like to see at primary level, what changes we would like to see at secondary level, and then we start moving up to the college, not just to how we want to train our teachers to deliver, but a whole change in what college is doing. Now, so far, we've come thus far to look at one, after 22 years, I think, of the Dominica State College. Even if we were not speaking about education reform, it's time now to look at the college and review some of the programs we've offered before and what we want to offer and where we are as it pertains to preparing people to serve in our major capital projects. So we have engaged a consultant outside to do a complete review of the Dominica State College. So that part of the education reform as it pertains to State College, we are going to do a review of the State College. I think we have prepared a lot of students and we have done it well. But now we start speaking about serving in geothermal, service at the international airport, service in the cable car. And we need to look at what we are offering now at the college. How do these prepare these students? What else we will need to do to ensure? So we have an outside consultant who will be doing a complete review of the college. Sometimes you hear people speak about JSP. The Bible says, let's not sit in the seat of the scornful. Sometimes we are always saying how things were and how things have become, and we do not get a chance to look at the growth. We need to put in our mind that JSP is a thing of the past. I mean, I've worked in education for 40-something years. Junior secondary program is a thing of the past. And people say, so why didn't they just carry the program to the secondary school? You know? Because at that time, because we did, but people still holding on to the fact that JSP was a program for students who couldn't learn. And I choose to use couldn't learn because I do not want to use not academically inclined. We had JSP because there was no space to put the children. Because there were children in JSP, if you see them now, we have some from our area, they work in banks and they work some in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but they didn't make it in the grade 6 national assessment because there was no space to put them. So since we moved into universal secondary education, the need for JSP became less and less, because the fact is, I taught common entrance class for years. When they tell you it's 6 you get in Cassie Bruce, you can have 40-something children, the results comes out, and you have 6. Does that mean that the other students couldn't make it to high school? Of course. My name didn't come out on the common entrance paper. Does that mean that I couldn't make it? No, that didn't mean that there was no space. So we had to create a program to accommodate these students at the primary school. When we move into universal secondary education, less and less we had the need for that, so we did. So presently, what we are actually preparing, we are preparing specific curriculums for TVET programs at Form 1, 2, and 3. Because the formal TVET program at the schools begin in Form 3. As of now, we have 16 TVET subjects being written at CXC level. So sometimes you hear people talking about why skills are not being taught, and I say, why people wouldn't just ask? And I agree about giving people more information. So we have 16 TVET subjects being taught presently at our schools. We have a government policy that requires that all students who are attending government secondary schools must leave school with 1 technical vocational subject. As of now, we have achieved 96% of that, and I speak of government secondary schools. Last year, we had a 94% pass at CXC in our 16 TVET subjects. So not as if we're not offering subjects at school. We have CVQ subjects being offered, and we have our students coming out with their grade 1 in CVQ. So that thing about skills not being taught is not so. However, now we're going to have the TVET Center of Excellence, another component of education reform. We are presently preparing how we will operate this place. So that's a conversation we are having, because this is not just new to us, it's kind of new to the region. And I say to my officers, we don't really need to start big, but we need to start right. We need to get it right. Because it's not only Dominica, people are looking at us and expecting us to serve them also at the center. So now we are in the process of doing how we're going to operate that center down there. So we have college, we have TVET center, we also place special emphasis on special education. We are also now in a plan. I have not presented the proposal to the cabinet, but I was in a big conversation with how we're going to use AI to educate our students. So we are also looking at how, because we just have to get on with what's going on. We must, even if we have to pilot it with a specific group. Because when I study and in the conversation was, we can do a pilot and we can give these children the same assessment with the other children and watch the results. So also it requires a lot of public awareness, because people have an idea about AI, church people say it's Antichrist, the next set of people say the next thing. So I can just imagine the kind of work we're going to have. But if you have a child with a specific need, you can have an AI teacher dealing with that, because more and more we see our primary schools needing to move into individualized instruction, because in some schools you have just 30 children. So we'll have to, the individualized instruction, this is where the AI instruction will help us, but we have to also get it right. And we are also now reviewing our list of national priorities to see what kind of occupations, what kinds of services, what we will need to encourage our people to study, those we have outside, how many we need, how we're going to position our people to serve in the projects. And if you want to know some more, you can always come and see me and we can talk. I thank you.
Morning, everyone. Regarding your question, whether we should bring the threshold up from 150 to maybe 200, 250, 300. Granted, we understand the situation in terms of cost of living, etc. However, if we were to bring it up, there are a few things we have to consider. It's not as simple as this. So if we bring it up, what it means, more people will shop online. What it means, less people will buy locally. So you have to consider the local stores as well. So it's not just a matter of bringing it up to make it easier and make it easier for people, but we have to consider we have the local store owners here as well. So we must consider those things. Apart from this though, bringing it up, it just means more money going out of the country as well. That's the second point. And then thirdly, because we had lots of discussions on this, and thirdly, if we were to find, because there are three sectors involved here: the local store owners, you the consumers, the persons who buy, and the government as well. The government has to get a revenue as well. So there's more money going out, there's less duties collecting at the customs and the port, which is the same money to drive the growth and development of the country. So it's a delicate balance we're striking between the store owners, between you, the public who have to purchase, and between the government who has to get a revenue. It's something we've discussed repeatedly, and we're in the process of ironing it out. But it's something we're fully much aware of, and we'll continue to discuss, and we'll come with a solution that everyone will win. It's a win-win for everyone. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Dr. McIntyre. Honorable Alfred, we appreciate this is the end of your press conference, and you have some more questions. Kewana Fontaine, Mr. Christian has a question. Julian Morris from GIS. Single question from Curtis and one from Carlisle. Thank you. And Matt has a final question. So that's 6 by my count. 6 questions. Thank you. Mr. Christian is from Cairo FM, sir. Please go ahead, Kewana.
Kewana Fontaine, Wilson, Creole announcer, DBS Radio. Prime Minister, good afternoon. I'm tempted to ask my question in Creole, but I know, unfortunately, there will be people saying, what did she say? What did she ask? So I'll make it easier for everybody and ask in English. Prime Minister, earlier on, you answered a question from Carlisle about the congestion in Dominica. And you mentioned a few very interesting solutions, and I appreciate the solutions, yes. But I also had one solution in mind. I'm not too sure if your government have considered in terms of alternative routes coming into Roseau. I know you spoke about this is a sign of progress, development, and all of that. But how long can we continue, in that situation going forward?
Mr. Christian, please give him the mic.
My question is for the Prime Minister. It has to do with salaries of a certain category of employees. That is the salary of the President, the salary of the Director of Audit, the salary of the DPP, and the salary of the Chief Elections Officer. All these salaries are changed by law. The President has to be an act of Parliament, and the other salaries have to be by SRNO. I have searched the laws of Dominica. I have not seen any SRNO for the increase in salaries. That means their salaries have not been increased. And the salary of the President getting $7,583 a month, that since Mr. Shaw, that was changed, and I don't think it has been changed. And the current President would be getting a lot more than that if she was still permanent secretary. So I'm asking if any plans are being made to pass the necessary laws to change those salaries, increase it.
From Julian Morris.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I think my first question is for PM. Usually when we consider development projects in Dominica, people tend to consider them in isolation. Okay, we're building an international airport. There's a potential port development that's coming, and so on and so forth and so on. But what I would ask PM to do first is, because I know government doesn't really do these projects in isolation, and there's a plan. So perhaps you can give us, PM, the picture you have in mind, what you have envisioned for the country when you take these projects collectively, combined, the combined potential economic impact of these projects to include geothermal, etc. And the other question, you said one, but quickly as we're ending up, the other one is not too long ago we saw the US make changes in their immigration system and so on. If you could speak to that, PM, in terms of, is there anything new, any update? How does that relate to us and so on?
Mr. John Baptist, Nature Isle News.
My question is for the Minister of Health as it relates to the hospital. Over the past time, I've been hearing nurses saying, look, they've done the various programs. It takes them a long time, some of them to get their license after they've become qualified, and also for them to get an appointment from government. Why is that taking a long time? Also, some time ago, I think there was an elevator issue at the hospital, and I know some patients who had to be taken from their rooms to do different things. It was very, very difficult to get them from their room because the elevator is not working, they are bedridden, etc. So what can be done to deal with that situation? Thank you. Curtis?
Ask the question, we'll just respond to all of them. That's right enough? Or you want to respond and then?
No. Yeah, the Arok House of Culture has been in the news for a little while. The government announced in 2024 that the Arok House of Culture would return in terms of operation. That's 2024. We did October 2024, in time for the independence celebration. It's gone past 2025. We've not seen any signs of the operations at the Arok House of Culture. The Minister for Culture, I'm sure she's somewhere around, Greta, I'm sure she's somewhere around, may want to tell us what is the latest. Because the people in the arts, they're very concerned. They're talking about the use of the Arok House of Culture. Any updates as to when we will see operations there once again? By the way, it's 8 years now.
Cassidy? I'll let the Minister of Health respond to the question and I'll wrap up my responses.
Good afternoon to all, and thank you very much for your question. Season's greetings to everyone. We had a technical challenge with the elevator. One of the doors was affected for some time, but only to let you know that very quickly our engineering department went into action to address the situation. The elevator is, for the most part, maintained by our staff at the hospital. However, seeing that the maintenance of elevators is very specialized, then there's a team out of St. Lucia that is engaged for the routine maintenance of the elevator. Recognizing the importance of a functioning and functional elevator at a hospital, what we have done is to ensure that they trained someone locally so we can have that capacity available. So we have someone available who is associated with the company to ensure that we can have quick interventions to ensure that it is functional. In addition to that, of course, for contingency, we do not depend on the elevator solely to provide access to any of the floors or the wards. So, of course, we utilize a ramp, and there are certain access points that we use. Of course, it's longer, a minute, a second in healthcare is critical, so we are fully aware of that, but it is something that we continue to address routinely. As it relates to the issue of the nurses, last year we would note, if we were to check the records in the government, this is the time period in our history that we have appointed more nurses than anything. In the Ministry of Health alone, almost 100 people were appointed. That's how seriously we address the issues as it relates to human resource capacity. We have been addressing the nurse attrition issues. Our numbers have been lower than ever. when we go back to 1984, that shows direct strategic interventions and investments by this government into our people and building capacity. Of course, as it relates to the time period in which nurses are recruited through our government system, there are 2 nursing schools here in Dominica. The exam is done, the regional nursing body exam is issued. They are required to pass that exam, after which they are to apply to the Nursing Council. Oversight is given by the Minister of Health and the ministry, but there is that body who is responsible for reviewing their application, checking their exam results, and so on. But from the moment they're granted that licensure, we ensure that through the office of the principal nursing officer that we respond very quickly. So it is more than just merely just passing the exam or completing the course of study at either of the facilities, but there's a process. But more than anything, we ensure that there's quick turnaround time from the moment that they have the requisite qualifications and they apply, to ensure that they're absorbed within the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services. Thank you very much.
I mean, truth be told, wouldn't you like to hear from these ministers more? I mean, the responses they give to the so eloquent. They were not prepared for the questions. They stood on their feet and they answered these questions so beautifully and so masterfully. And all the people are saying, I want to hear from you more. You understand? I mean, you heard from some of them today, but you didn't hear from Roland. Yes. You didn't hear from Grant. You didn't hear from Coase there. And Dennis Charles there. The short guy from Colio, Pinard, and so on. And, you know, and you didn't hear from Dr. Williams at the back there, you know. I mean, the guy from St. Joe, Lloyd. Don't talk about the fisheries guy. I mean, the guy who talked about fisheries and blue and green economy. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the responses, I just sat there and said, well, but why you guys not talking to the people now? People, you know what I'm saying? More. So I'm sure in 2026 you'll hear more from them. But it speaks to their capacity, it speaks to the depth, it speaks to the fact of their stewardship. I think the work that has been done behind this thing need to be exemplified before the public by explaining to the public a bit more. So I thank them for their responses. The congestion alternative routes, DBS, I mean, when you came in, we upgraded, for example, the Baffin State Goodwill Link Road to create double lane access. Before you had to reverse, or there were times in the day that you could go down, and the time in the day you couldn't go up. So we created that double lane. We did also the link road on Rose Street to the Windsor Park, a road that people said was impossible. When I said that we're going to do the road on the bridge, people said, well, what are you going to do the road on the bridge? We had to climb about 150 steps. There's no way you could do that road and see the road how that's enhancing. We also did a bridge at the market. So when you're coming from Granby and you go into Portsmouth, there's really no need for you to go into Roseau. You could use that road. Or you could use the Baffin State Road and go up Goodwill and get out of town. And we also enhanced the West Bridge. The West Bridge was a single lane, I believe, at the time. We've done it a double lane so that vehicles can get out of town. So if you go in Goodwill, you take to the right. If you go into Portsmouth, you take to the left, and you get out of town. So we continue improving those access. Where you have some of the bottlenecks and so on is in Newtown, then the option is to the sea. Then you have to talk about the cost of it, and do you have the resources to do this? When you look at Maho, my intention after the hurricane was to have acquired a number of the properties along the road, along the beach in Maho. But obviously, with so many things that you have to deal with at the time, you know, where was that placed in terms of the resources that you have and the sheer task you had of rebuilding the country? And so these are some things that we have to look at going forward. And of course, we have to seek to improve the congestion at the port, especially when you have a cruise ship on point. But the reality is, at the end of it, the reality you have is that two things. You have limitations in what you can do, especially in the urban areas, in terms of additional accesses and entry points and exit points. And that coupled with the sheer number of vehicles coming in the country every 2 weeks, you know, every 2 weeks. And so I think we need to sit down and have some conversations as to how do we address some of those challenges. I know we had done some studies as part of the roads enhancement project for around the port area, and we had studied some alternative route that we could use so that you could bypass the entrance to the port facilities, and it's something that we're gonna have to look at, especially when we build the new cruise village. So certainly that at least this area needs to be an urgent area for consideration by the government in 2026. So at least we can look at this. The issue of the salaries that are controlled by the Constitution and require parliamentary or cabinet approval by way of amendments to the act. So the president, there's a law that deals with the president, for the president and the terms of engagement of the president. That we've done a comprehensive review of the terms of the president, and not only the emoluments, but also how we as a nation treat both serving and former presidents. That you have a president who leaves office and he or she is completely naked the moment he demits office, and that's not really what was envisaged. When in America you're president, they call you President Barack Obama and President Biden. They don't say former president, they don't say president, and you have all sorts of facilitation, you know, security and drivers and vehicles and etc. etc. So we have done a comprehensive review of the president's emoluments and engagement, and so I look forward in the first quarter of next year that we can take this to Parliament, and that will also include an increase in the president's salary. Then you also have the issue of the president's spouse. Once you become the president's spouse, then you will become limited in what you can do, what you can engage in. And I think that a burden should not be placed on the president's family if they decide to serve the nation, that there must be some facilitation. And so we are also taking into consideration a particular legal treatment of the president's spouse, you know, while in office, and so forth, because there's some things that the president office must be extended to and regarded, and I'm hoping that we can go to Parliament to do so. So both how we treat current presidents and past presidents, and so forth. As you saw, we have a cabinet decision in respect to the prime ministers, former prime ministers. We took a cabinet decision to provide $7,000 a month to every former prime minister. You have a driver, you have a helper at the house, and in some cases they have a vehicle, and we've extended that to remove the duties, all the duties and taxes on a vehicle imported. And what we have done, because we learned that experience with Patrick John's wife in a particular case, that once the president dies, then all of this stuff ends. So we're now extending, for example, so if the spouse succeeds or survives the former prime minister, then he or she will get half of the $7,000 a month until death. Because once you are a spouse or a prime minister, you have the equal burden of the office and the impositions of the office, and that is not taken into consideration. And I think that we have to get to that point. So in respect to the president, that will be done. In respect to the director of audit, in 2024 there was an SRO. It may need to be updated because of some of the changes, so that will be done. And in terms of the chief election officer, there was a change of salary for the chief election officer. And as you know, we also took a decision to change the retirement date for the director of audit and the chief election officer, because as it was before, the chief election officer had to demit office at age 55, and that was changed during the process of the electoral reform. Okay, so we have taken note of those points. The combined economic impact of what we're doing is bearing fruit. really bearing fruit. If you look at social development, access to better healthcare, access to more services, you have more doctors at the hospital and at the disposal of Dominican people paid for by the Treasury than ever before. You have more supporting staff. At the hospital alone, we have over 700 staff. You know, that's a huge entity for the size of the population. You're talking about housing, access to potable water. We have 100% access to potable water in every community, and many of them are on the upgrades now. And I want to say to the people of Penville and Amber in my own constituency who have been calling for the improvement of the water system, that in the first quarter of next year, come January, February, we will start the reconstruction of the water system to alleviate the pain and suffering. And we do so a number of water systems, so in terms of access to water, access to education, not only access to education, but facilitating them to take advantage of the access, because the one thing you can have access, but one thing you may not have the means of taking advantage of the access, and we provide them with that support, whether it's free tuition at State College, transportation for a number of college students, free transportation for all high school students, free books, free uniforms for students in all communities. All of those things are being done. Improve amenities at the community level, roads and etc., and farm roads, and investment in small businesses, investment in agriculture. We see the difference. Investment in tourism. You know, Mr. Morris, at some point we'll criticize. People say we're spending too much money in hotels. We've been too many hotel rooms, but we don't have enough hotel rooms now to accommodate people coming in. People say that we're wasting money night landing at the airport, but we see the difference. The extension of the runway, lights, and the grouping of the runway. American Airlines will have 2 flights a day next couple of days. And when will it start, Dennis? Today. So 2 flights will come every day. They do not trial run because there's a demand. You know what I'm saying? So we're saying this. We had the biggest Creole festival ever. People are coming, and these are visitors to our country, tourists to our country, who are coming because Dominica is the place to be and to experience, whether it's river tubing or all those things. When you see all those little businesses popping up, it's because people sense and know that something is happening. Nobody's going to do a business because they like small business. People do business because they like money. And if they're going to make money, they will have a business and they'll expand. You know, so people are doing one thing now, they want to do another thing because they're feeling the vibe, they're experiencing the vibe. And so they want to now be part of it and so forth. You know, I met a youngster today, he's a barber, and he's saying, look, I want to go into taxi service, you know, to do this thing. So people, they are making, I mean, when you look at the number of small business now compared to 10 or 15 years ago, they're dramatic. The economy is not capturing the contribution of small businesses at all, you know. Zero impact in terms of contribution, you know. They're capturing that contribution, but it's a huge impact of job creation and money in people's pockets and people creating employment. There are a lot of ordinary Dominicans who are creating employment for people across Dominica, you know, using local products and adding value to it and exporting those things. But this is not captured in our export numbers because people bring it in their private suitcases and their friends take it back to them to Guadeloupe and they bring the money back. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happens there. So you have those things happening there. So we're seeing, and this is why we have to keep moving. So we brought in night landing. Now we have to get to the point of the international airport, because in the next 2 years, the Douglas Charles would not be able to absorb or to accommodate the sheer number of people coming into the country. This is why next year you will see us building a new terminal building for the ferry service, because it has outlived its usefulness, its capacity. So we have to know, we're designing a design and build for purpose terminal building that could stand the test of the current times and the future times. So there are a number of things that we're looking to do, that we must continue to do. This is why we continue to invest heavily in agriculture. I mean, if the Minister of Agriculture has to spend it and speak to you about investment in agriculture, it take forever. You know, so these are things we're doing. And I'm just rushing my response to you because of time. Yeah. And then we have the final question, immigration system. I have advocated to the government that we need to free up this immigration system in the country. And this idea of visas, we can't be going and ask people for visa free to our country and we have visa to our country. It doesn't make sense to me. You see what I'm saying? We have to facilitate movement of people. And there are security systems, there's advanced passenger information system that you know who's coming before the plane has landed. There's a sharing, there's a framework and architecture where you share information on people of interest. And I think that we have to move and get all of these visas that we have imposed on other countries, the citizens of other countries, to be removed, and to first people come in the country, and I'm hoping that in next year the government could see why I'm saying that, and the government could agree with me and do it. And then the agriculture. My personal preference was to build a new building. You see, build a new building. Once you go and touch an old building, problem will start. Just imagine you're fixing your old house, my brother. When you go and you put a bulb, we tell you have to change the wiring. You bring your new faucet and your new WC and your new vanity you buy and so forth, and a pipe bursts because you have the old plumbing in a 25-year-old house. You understand? When you fix the thing, you have to take out all the plumbing, throw it away. You have to redo the electrical, because now with modern lighting we're talking about, that arc was wired in the 80s. Half of Dominica didn't have lights in the 80s. You understand? So you can't go and put new lights with old wiring. So when you can't put the old lights away, you're going to have a problem. You get the quality. So now the advice is that we have to change the wiring, electrical wiring of the entire building. And now that's a huge cost. But I believe that I'm a history student. So I appreciate history. I got the history prize at grammar school, I got the history prize at college. So I know history and I appreciate history. And I appreciate architecture. I appreciate history and the whole maintaining history. But sometimes we have to incorporate new things and new thinking while we keep some of the old things. But we can't want to keep everything old in Dominica from a historical perspective. So my view, for example, the same thing with the library. We'd have had a brand new library there with all of the facilitation. So when you talk about AI and so on, children will have access to all libraries in the world. That's the kind of technology I was going to introduce in the library. And my thinking was to take the stones in the old library, take the old wood in the library, and incorporate it in the construction. So we preserve history. This is a stone 100 years old. So these are the kind of things that we have to. So yes, we have to. History is good and so forth. I like to teach history. I like to teach history someday. Again, but sometimes we have to bring the new and incorporate the old. But so this is something that we have to talk about. And so my final point is to all of you, wish you a Merry Christmas. Sorry. So the minister is not there to give you a comprehensive response. So I think that they're now at the level of making a determination as to how they treat with the electricals. You understand? Because my understanding, the sheer cost of the electrical is huge. You understand? And obviously for a building like that, it's going to cost some money. So I think the ministry now is waiting on some advice from the Ministry of Public Works as to how they proceed with the rewiring of the ROC and so on. So because the point is, once you're dealing with an old building, every time you move forward, you get something that will have a problem. I think Imo News has a question. I'll get them the courtesy of asking the question. Imo News? Yeah. It's okay? Yeah, come, she can ask the question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ebony Sprendo from MO News.
Yeah.
Prime Minister, there's been a long-standing concerns regarding the roads, plural, on the southeast. A bridge was put in place this year, I believe, and the roads were also cleaned, but ever since then it has deteriorated. And now, recently, there's been a situation near Three Rivers, where we refer to it as Odalis, where the boulders are coming down. and the road is extremely hazardous. And additionally to that, the Poncase Road is in horrible condition. So, given the risk, especially if one of the boulders were to cause further damage to the road, what steps is the government taking to address both the immediate safety concerns and the long-term development of infrastructure in the Southeast?
So, Grant? All right. The regards to daily spirit savan, as you know, to take you to Pity Savan, we built 2 bridges. One in Bacatel, that cost over $2.7 million. And we've also put in a Bailey Bridge in Pity Savan. Those of us know Pity Savan, that is in the vicinity of the home of the former Chief of Police, Mr. Darrow's mother, right in that area there. So we built a bridge there. And we've also worked with the local residents in Pity Savan to improve a couple areas where there are water crossings, and they did a pretty good job in building a bridge with their own labor by we providing them with the support that they required way of materials. And the number of improvements that we've done in terms of patching the roads along from Bacatel to Pity Savan. The only thing that needed to be done, I believe, that is the approach to the Bailey Bridge, to have it concreted, and also to do some road maintenance, because there are a number of potholes from that bridge in Pity Savan to Dailies. So that's what I'm doing. But I drove on that road. We drove on that road some time ago, so people can drive on the road. So there's thoroughfare. Obviously, one has to be careful if you're driving on there. I know there was vegetation, and we moved the local teams across there to manage the vegetation. But in Dominica, high rainfall, in a twinkle of an eye, vegetation will go. So I think that the residents on both communities need to engage themselves on a vegetation management system. But I think people, all of the people in the Southeast would appreciate the sheer amount of money that we spent, and we give priority in constructing a bridge in Pity Savan as opposed to doing a bridge in Sari Sari, which is, in my view, should you ask me, would have been more crucial for the people of the Southeast than the bridge in Pity Savan. But we understand they need to connect these 2 communities for economic reasons, and the Pity Savan will go across to sell the fish, and the people from Dailies come across to sell their ground provisions and so forth. So we'll continue to work in 2026, but so far I can drive from Roseau to Dailies. Obviously, you have to be careful and so on, but the connection there does not prevent you from passing, but we can certainly do that. The issue of Odalis is a long-standing matter. We had done some work there on this. There were some different iterations as to what should be done and can be done to mitigate against the falling rocks in that area. The Ministry of Public Works is reviewing previous studies that were done. I know that there are some temporary measures that they're seeking to put in place, that they've been putting in place, but I think that the long-term solution there is a very challenging one. But it's a study that the Ministry of Public Works is reviewing to advise the cabinet on what needs to be done for long-term solution to that area. There. The issue of Poncase, obviously Poncase is on the rough side. So yes, we do the road maintenance. Yes, we do the patching of the roads, but in itself, it's a rough road. But I believe in 2026 we will see a dramatic improvement to that road from Poncase to Boadiab. Obviously, we have to construct a number of water crossings first, because all of them need to be upgraded. So that'll be done, and there'll be a complete resurfacing of that road. Also, what will be done is the road from the Hillsborough Bridge, the York Valley Bridge in Layu to Sultan Water Junction. So that's another one on the cards for us to improve and enhance the thing. But we should not discount the fact that we spent $227 million from Boadiab to Castle Bruce, and then to the Calago territory, and then to Pigwa, with some 5 or so bridges built and so on. So we continue spending on this, and because roads are important, and that's why I appreciate your question on highlighting those. You have a question, sir? Yeah.
Yes, PM. You give the Ministry of Agriculture a mandate to bring in $700 million to the coffers of the Treasury by 2030. Are we satisfied that the Ministry of Agriculture is poised to achieve this goal?
Well, I mean, we continue to invest. We continue to invest heavily. I mean, agriculture has been getting significant investments, and we continue to do so. And I think some of the infrastructure we're putting in place will certainly enhance our ability to reach that target at some point. Now, it may not be 2030, but I think that we continue to invest, and we're seeing in the manifestation with increased markets and ability to supply those markets, and focusing on particular crops so that we can ensure that when our visitors come, that we're able to supply them with the produce and so forth. So I want to take the opportunity to two things. So wish all of you a Merry Christmas. Here, it's okay. Here at the press, and of course, Dominica as a whole, it's a Christmas season. Let us go ahead and celebrate and be each other's keeper. I recognize that you don't ask me any question about the UWP's delegates conference. I guess you figure it's not a national issue. But all I will say is that I'm looking at a candidate for Marigot. And I intend to approach Mr. Edison James and Mr. Wayne James as a potential Labour Party candidate for Marigot as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. It has been a great engagement. I thank the members of the media for your support today and throughout the year. We look forward to engaging with you in the new year, and I'm looking at the government ministers. You will be hearing more from them moving ahead into 2026. Merry Christmas, everybody.